Welcome to the Rock Interview Series with host Thomas S. Orwatt Jr.
Welcome to episode number 122 of the Rock Interview Series. I'm Thomas Orwatt Jr., and today is May 8th, 2025. Joining me in this episode is Gil Moore, drummer, singer, and songwriter of the legendary Canadian hard rock power trio Triumph. Triumph is celebrating its 50th anniversary with the highly anticipated release of Magic Power, All-Star Tribute to Triumph, set to drop on June 6th, 2025. This tribute album features 15 of Triumph's biggest hits, reimagined by an incredible lineup of artists, including Sebastian Bach, Nancy Wilson, Lawrence Gowan, Dee Snider, and many, many more. In this exclusive interview, Gil shares insights on the All-Star Tribute to Triumph, the upcoming Triumph Live Experience Tour, the possibility of a reunion with all three members, and much, much more. So let's get started. Here is Gil Moore. We have the return of Gil Moore with us today. Gil from Triumph, of course, and 2025 is the 50th year anniversary of Triumph. So, Gil, congratulations on that. That's quite an accomplishment. 50 years ago. Can you believe you started the band 50 years ago and you're still doing Triumph stuff now?
It's hard. It's hard to believe, actually, Thomas. You start out, you're kids and you're hanging around bands and you're dreaming about playing in a band. Then, you get a bit older, you get to play in one and you go through all the trials and tribulations of those baby bands. And then when Triumph started, of course, at that point, was lucky to get the guys together in that combination at that point in time. That you never think this much time's going to go by. You never think about awards or, gold records or halls of fame. You're just trying to survive and get to the next step.
Yeah. Well,
The
I'll
world
tell you.
changes.
Yeah, now you have some pretty exciting projects coming up. First of all, let's talk about the tribute record that's coming out to Triumph. It's been a few years in the making. I remember, I think we talked about this like 2 or 3 years ago with you. Our Magic Power, the All-Star Tribute to Triumph, which is 15 tracks with an amazing roster of artists playing on this thing. I guess I want to ask you before we go into like some of the tracks, why did it take so long for it to finally come together?
That's a really good question, Thomas. And I'll tell you, there's a really good answer. It's called COVID. So Mike Clink, has got to get the credit for the perseverance. I really thought this project would fall apart because, we started and then COVID kicked right in. So you said 2 years or whatever, and it's been more than that. Um, yeah, and Mike had no access to recording studios, and Mike in LA, where they were all locked down, which is where Mike's from, and and the musicians, like they didn't want to be near, the microphones that everyone sings into, and they didn't want to be in the same room because, you get the drummer going and he's exhaling a lot, or the singer's blowing, and all the stuff that we worried about in COVID was like, multiplied by five when you get into a recording studio, I guess. So he just persevered, and in some cases, he had to do some remote recordings with some people, in New York or elsewhere. But one by one, he got the tracks together. And as you say, he assembled just an incredible group of musicians and singers. And to his credit, he just stuck to it. And I don't know, we should figure out what the total elapsed time was, but I got to think it's over 4 years, and it's finally coming out, which is yeah, a lot of fun for us and hopefully for fans.
Yeah, it comes out on June 6th. There's already been a few tracks that have been out. The 24 Hours a Day and Rock and Roll Machine with Sebastian Bach is just absolutely mind-blowing. And Dee Snider, Lay It on the Line, that's another song that's amazing. Was there one particular track on here that really kind of blew your mind? I mean, more so than anything else on it?
They I'll put it this way, they with for a certainty they all blew my mind because they were the performers like these are the best musicians anywhere in hard rock. So they're all kind of virtuosos and in their own right. And So you kind of, as a band being Triumph, you have to kind of get over that shock of, wow, these folks are playing, our tunes, and it's such a amazing honor to have them doing it. But uh, when you get into the individual tracks and you say, well, which one was, the most surprising? Well, I would say that when they took the song in a completely different direction. So I'll start with Nancy Wilson, who took Fight the Good Fight, and she's got a beautiful voice. And you know how she kind of weaves her melodies, and there's a certain cadence to her voice that kind of reminds me of the wind and waves, and a baby rocking in a cradle. Like she's got a very unique cadence and style, and so she really made Fight the Good Fight her own song. It doesn't sound like her trying to beat Triumph for a long shot. She's being Nancy Wilson, so that's so unique. That was, and the other track I would say is very similar in that respect is Envy of None doing Blinding Light Show, because if you put them up side by side on two turntables and listen to our version and then listen to their version, you'd wonder, not only it's not the same band, obviously, but is it even the same song? It's so different. So they really owned, their own version. Their signature they put on that song was really something that was very surprising. I think and we loved it, by the way. And I think the tracks where the artists were closer to the original. Um, uh, yeah, it's more the performance of the instruments and the voices versus, I guess, being surprised by the arrangement. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, some of the guitar work on Rock and Roll Machine is just out of this world. I mean, Rick's guitar work originally was like out of this world, and like it got bumped up a little bit. That was Bumblefoot that played on that, correct?
Yeah, I don't. I think you're right. I don't have the tracks in front of me, and I've talked about them so much. I sometimes get the musicians confused as to what track they were on. But how many great guitar players can you have on one record? Bumblefoot, Phil X, Nita Strauss. I mean, it just kind of goes on and on. Drummers too, like Kenny Aronoff. I love his playing. Tommy Aldridge, I was always in awe of Tommy Aldridge, and Brett Fitz. I mean, yeah, it's an all-star cast. I guess that's what you have to say.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What are your plans to promote this? Are there any like big plans down the road? I know, and we're going to talk about this, of course, is the Triumph Live experience that you've talked about recently. But do you have anything else that you plan on doing directly to promote this release?
Uh, I guess the record label is coming up with ideas left, right, and center, and we're just kind of trying to keep up with the whole thing. To be honest with you, so and it's rolling out. Kind of like every day or two, we're getting requests for this and requests for that, Thomas. So I can't point to any single event or in anything that I have at my fingertips right now. But yes, we'll be continuing to support. It's nothing we've ever done. Like to have a record that's not Triumph. It's all these great musicians, but they're playing our music. I mean, for Mike, Rick, and I, we're unfamiliar with the territory. It's as much as promoting, I guess you would say, what you're asking about. I think a lot of it is wanting to just thank uh, the great musicians and singers that played on this, and Mike Clink, who, by the way, no Mike Clink, there would have been no Triumph tribute record because somebody had to steer the ship through the storm, and Mike did a magnificent job of that, and then his talent behind the big board. When he would send us mixes and stuff, and we would just go, "Wow, that's a jaw dropper." That one's great. Oh, this one's spectacular. And yeah, it was just a real victory lap feeling. Every time he would send us stuff, we would just be, this is great. This is great. Just keep going. This is great.
Like I said, from what I've heard so far, it is pretty amazing. How often do you get asked, and I'm sure it's a lot, to like get the original band together and go out and do maybe one more show or a few songs? I mean, that's what Triumph fans really, really want, and you know that. And I know it's been asked in every interview
Yeah.
you've ever done for the last like 30 years, but is there any possibility that that could maybe happen one day? Just even if it's just, one concert or like a set of five songs, kind of like you did back in 2019 with the Superfan experience. Will we ever see three of you guys perform again?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I mean, maybe, I guess is the answer. I mean, we didn't do the 2008 shows until we did them. If we'd been talking in 2007, it was, well, that won't happen. And then in 2008, we went and played Sweden Rock, the big festival in Sweden, and then we went over near Dallas to southern Oklahoma there and played that big show at Rocklahoma, and it was fun. We did that for reasons that were personal to us. It was we wanted to show our families, like our kids, our young kids that were younger that had never seen us, never heard us, and give them a chance to come and experience, the big festival environment. Uh, when we played in the documentary, we played three songs. And that was in 2019, I believe, if I have my years right, maybe 2021. I don't know. Don't quote me on that one. Um, but that was again, that wasn't planned. It was the directors said, we want you guys to do this, and you're going to hide behind a screen, and you've probably seen the documentary, so you know what I'm talking about. We said, okay, we'll do it, and we just recently, as a matter of fact, this isn't the whole band together, but Rick re-recorded "Hold On" for Music Monday, which is the national music education event here in Canada that happens every year. And "Hold On" was the anthem they picked this year, and it was re-recorded with students, teachers, and kids choir. And it was a really great version, and it's completely different than the record. So I don't know. I think Rick had a really good time doing that. Um, you never know where it might go in terms of something that comes up, let's say in a special event or something like that. So I don't want to mislead people and say, yeah, we it's going to happen or there's something that will happen for sure. I just don't know. So when you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Sorry, maybe not a great answer or what people want to hear, but that's
yeah.
from the horse's mouth. So
Well, I get it. I mean, would you want to if the other two guys said, "Hey, let's do this," would you be on board with it?
yeah, I mean, only if it was mutual. Like, I have a lot of respect for, Mike and Rick's opinions on everything, and we have a manager now, Jason Murray, who's been doing a great job, and he's been giving us a lot of guidance. So it's, I'm in with the team, so to speak, with whatever people have in mind. But it has to be mutual. It has to be something where we're all unified. I never want anybody to feel like they're being pushed around, and I don't think Mike or Rick want to push me around. Everyone wants to just do what feels right for the team.
Yeah. So like when you're inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that would be a good reason to do it, right?
Yeah, you got me there, probably.
All right, so there we go. That's what we have to make happen, and it should have happened a long time ago. I mean, it's ridiculous that we're even talking about it. I mean, does that? I mean, does that matter to you at all? That that you deserve there and you're not in there yet.
I think, most musicians, the standard answer is like, I don't give a crap. Uh, I don't think that's really sincere. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're in all the Hall of Fames in Canada that exist. Canada's Walk of Fame, the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, Canadian Music Industry Hall of Fame, and they were a ton of fun to do, and they were great honors, and they were our family and our kids obviously love that kind of stuff. The American Hall of Fame in Cleveland. They've taken there's a lot of arguments about the choices that they've made, and some of the artists that they picked, and what their criteria is. Like, well, okay, did you have to achieve a certain level of respect among the fans, and sell some records and sell some tickets, or you just pick your favorites because you like them? And I think there's been a lot of thought that maybe hard rock, uh, took a back seat. And I know that in the press, some press, not all, but in some press in that era were very anti-rock. Rolling Stone magazine, for example, I love them for this, but they called Triumph a Las Vegas pit band of mutant hoseheads. And it was actually a great quote because we went, okay, you hate us, good for you. It won't mean one person, whoever wrote this article. And then when we do interviews and people would say, well, how would you describe your band? Because you're kind of metal, but you're kind of progressive and you're kind of hard rock and you're kind of pop at times. Like, what would you call yourself? And I had the perfect answer. Well, we're a Las Vegas pit band of mutant hoseheads, which answers all questions. So
That's a
maybe if
good
the Rock and
response.
Roll Hall of Fame needs a Las Vegas pit band full of mutant hoseheads, maybe we'd be the front runner.
Yeah, well, if that's what it takes, I mean, let's make it happen. I want to talk about the Triumph Live experience. Can you briefly tell us a little bit about this? I also heard that Phil X, who is actually in Triumph, is going to be a big part of this.
Yeah, so we're working on just kind of like the tribute album took forever. This is another something that started pre-COVID. So we have
Wow.
a really fantastic lighting designer, Paul Dexter from Los Angeles, who worked with us back in the day, and he's one of the greatest in the business. And he was one of the I'll call him one of the godfathers of the hologram sort of movement. And I reached out to Paul when I saw this because I know he was doing Ronnie Dio from Black Sabbath, and I said, Paul, we maybe do this with Triumph. This could be really cool because of what you asked me earlier. How many times do I get asked, is Triumph going to tour? All the time. It's, you know, and so I thought, well, here's an angle where we could do this. And despite everyone else's other schedules and the things they're into and so on and so forth, maybe it's a way to do it. Went and saw it and just realized, no, this wouldn't work. Not for Triumph. Like it's fine for, in this case, I went and saw Frank Zappa because Paul was doing Frank Zappa at that point. And it was nice for what he did with Dio was really nice. And the Zappa thing was really nice, but not for Triumph. So we sat and we came up with an idea because here in Canada, we're partners with Microsoft and they have a mixed reality department. So we reached out to the mixed reality team at Microsoft and started to, get some insights into where they were taking that technology. And Paul and I just went on a, kind of research mission on like how we might want to come up with something that was completely different than just holograms and do something that contained some three-dimensional content, but that was only sort of one aspect of the presentation, as I'll say. And we also looked at the fixed residencies, like the ABBA show in London, which of course is a great show. And I've been asked a lot, well, is what you're working on similar? And it's not similar at all. Bears no resemblance to that. I mean, the only comparison would be that there's 3D is part of it, but it's just not anything like that. So we have it to the point now where we're satisfied with the technology, the way we're doing the technical aspects of it, which we've been through multiple iterations of designs for how to do it and pull it off. And then, of course, I had to get Mike and Rick thinking that I'm not crazy and thinking that this is actually a good idea. So Mike and Rick, they're on board, and then of course I had to get Phil on board because we really wanted Phil, through this whole tribute experience. Again, this was Mike Clink's idea. He said, Gil, you should use uh, players from the tribute album to do this, concept that you and Paul are working on. And I said, you know what? I think you got a point there. So we've approached Phil, and of course, there's a conflict there because he's a guitarist in Bon Jovi as well. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. Um, as far as getting out with Phil at a time when he's not with Bon Jovi, or making that work. Bon Jovi doesn't play all the time, so it should work. And yeah, and the hoping to get that on the road, to be honest, be really optimistic late this year, to be more realistic, probably 2026. So still part of like this 50th run. And it's a no wine before it's time thing, Thomas. Like as much as we got the technology there and so on now, on the technical side, we still have some content to build, and all the logistics of booking a tour and so on and so forth. We actually had a 10-date run planned in Canada in June, but we had a conflict um, with Phil's schedule, so we decided to pull that back. And I think Jason's now looking more at starting in America at first and coming back to Canada afterwards. So that's the current game plan.
So that's something that could be in like theaters, like you remember Kleinhans in Buffalo, something like a theater like that size. You're thinking, or are you thinking even bigger?
We probably start it in theaters because we probably need a run of 2 weeks or so to perfect some of the craft involved, and then it's scalable. So it would really be a matter of demand. Like if there's a lot of demand for it, we put it back in arenas, and if it's more to the scale of a theater size audience or casino size or whatever, we go that way. Those are just kind of business decisions that our manager Jason and then the agents, our agent Jeff would make.
Yeah, it's I mean it's an interesting concept and it has been done kind of before. You mentioned Zappa and also Dio, and those kind of like received like mixed reviews. I mean, I don't think they were really 100% ready when they rolled them out. And it sounds like you guys have put a lot of thought and time into this. So, and it's Triumph, so I know it's going to be incredible because everything you guys do is incredible.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I told Paul when I saw Frank, and I really love Frank Zappa, but after the show he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "The hologram's like a feature on the platform, but it's not a platform in and of itself." And he said, "What?" And I said, "It's a great feature on a platform, but it's not a platform in and of itself." And that's why we switched to mixed reality because he said, "I agree with you, but it was, you got to remember, this was new. And so holograms were new. So they were trying to do what they could. And the hologram itself of Frank, for that matter, Ronnie, the Frank's hologram was one iteration later. So it was that much better, was magical. I mean, I was sitting in the Kodak Theater and I'm watching, I'm going, well, that's him. It's just, he's in thin air. It was really something, but it's only one thing. That's not a show. It's not a fully, it's like I say, it's not a platform. It's it's a form of entertainment that I guess would work in a very short form.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to do a concert and entertain people, there's just more to it than that. And the other aspect of it was technical without getting into the weeds on it. The mechanism all obstructs the stage. So like that was my main thing. Like, how are you going to have like a guitar player run across the stage? He's going to smash into this thing. So, but we have all that worked out, and it's what we're doing is completely different technology, and it doesn't rely on holograms for the show to be successful. The holograms are part of it, but it does not rely on holograms.
I think when people want to see a live music experience, have a live music experience, they need like actual musicians playing live to fully get it. And I think that's what you guys are doing right with this, having the
Yeah,
extra musicians there. I really do.
yeah, and I agree. I agree with you, Thomas. And initially, we didn't think that. Like we'd watch the Queen film, and we thought maybe that's the direction, where you have characters that look like the guys in the band. So originally, it was like we got to get someone that looks like Rick and someone that looks like Mike and so on. Gil, we don't need to worry about. He's behind the drums. Nobody cares what he looks like. But the net result was that, Mike Clink flipped the switch on that. He goes, "Why would you do that?" He said, "You should get guys that, who cares what anybody looks like? It's about how well they play. And you got the best musicians in the world right now in the studio with me." And he just did this, and I called Paul and I said, "Hey man, like, the Klinkster is just, you know, put some ideas in my head here. What do you think about this?" And I said, "Paul, I close my eyes and I put myself in the audience. And if I can't see anything, what do I want? Oh, I want to feel my chest getting hit. I want to feel, my ears filling up with beautiful vocals. I want to hear, the the shredding of all guitars. I want to hear the best of the best of the best. The drums going crazy, all of that stuff." And okay, you're not getting that from like actors or B musicians or anything. You got to get guys that are like, absolutely superstar caliber, like the best of the best of the best if you're going to do that, especially with a three-piece band. So that's why we just decided, we're gonna go that route, and the visual effects will be phenomenal. And the joke that I've made, to several people is, we'll be the first six-piece trio, the only power trio with six guys, and it's true because the three of us will be virtually in the show in more ways than one. Not just as holograms, but as there's different elements. Without me giving away too much, there's plenty of Mike, Rick, and Gil in the show. So it's I think something that may catch on even with other artists if it's well received. I have no doubt it'll be well received. I have no doubt there's naysayers that listen and say, oh no, well if it's not the original band, I don't want to be there. Yeah, that's fine for you, but wait and see how good this is going to be, and wait and see that how it gets on fire once it gets rolling. That's what I think is going to happen, because there's just so much more to it. It's not just a Triumph show by any means. This is about um, a different style or a different form of entertainment that um, I don't know. I think it'll have a lot of impact. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean the bottom line is you have a great catalog of songs, and those songs need to live on, and people need to experience them live, because that's what it was all about when you saw Triumph back in the day. Hearing seeing this great show with this great stage presentation, with these great musicians, with these great songs. That was the magic of Triumph.
Yeah, and I think that the one of the problems with bands when they end up with one original member, or some cases no original members or whatever. And okay, you're listening to the music, you're hearing the music, and that's in some cases great. It takes you back. You remember the songs, and you can say, okay, well, these are different musicians, but I'm loving the music, so it's great. So this again was, Paul and I saying, well, yeah, but that's not enough. We want to do something that pulls you more back in your memories and takes out of the music what was the actual value of the music? What's the narrative that means something, you know? And so we chose the theme positivity. That's our theme, is positivity, because we felt that the lyrics that were part of what Triumph was or is, many of the lyrics were positive, and it was something that the fans really pushed back to us through, emails and comments in person and so on, about life-changing moments that were helped through the some of the more inspirational lyrics, I suppose, or positive lyrics, I'll call them, or lyrics of hope. So we thought, okay, that is really something that we have to drive home in this, whatever it is, whether it's a concert, a play, a movie, or a combination of all of these things that we're trying to weave together. And it's a bit like, a chef trying to come up with a new recipe. Like, well, we know how to cook, but we're not sure exactly what we're cooking. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
a lousy metaphor. I don't know.
Well, no, I get it, because you're at that stage where you're not really 100% sure of exactly what it's gonna look like when it's all comes together, right?
Yeah, I mean, Thomas Edison had to fool around with a few light bulbs to get it right. And that's why, Paul and I are like, I think we're on our fourth generation of the actual technical side of it, aside from the vision side of it, the technical side of it. We're like four generations deep. So we're 100% confident in what we're doing. There's no
Yeah.
changing anything now as far as that goes. That's not really it. It's more about the messaging and the presentation, and and of course the business of getting a tour rolling, all of that. But we know how to tour. We know how to do that stuff.
Yeah.
We're just
And
loading trucks
you
at Metalworks.
you might have some competition with the Kiss Avatar project too, which is supposed to be coming out, I believe, in 2027, last I heard.
Yeah, that'll be really something. I mean, I think it's going to be the same. I believe, I don't know, but I've heard it's the same company that um, and the same technology that's used in London with ABBA. And Kiss is a unique band, that's for sure. And Gene and Paul, I'm sure, have a lot of tricks up their sleeves. But Yeah, that's not the style that we had in mind at all. So it's a totally different concept that we're working on. The only similarity, I guess, is that it's the Gene and Paul won't be there playing live, so it's similar in that respect, but uh, the presentation itself totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
And we
Well,
wanted a
Gil,
touring entity. We wanted something that's going to go that could go and play all the places Triumph played. So can play the big cities like Dallas and New York and Chicago, but we want to be able to go and play the secondary markets as well because that was what we did. We played everywhere. That's how we made fans because you didn't have streaming and people finding out about you over the internet overnight all around the world. You had to go one city at a time and build an audience. And I think that's probably why our fans are so loyal is because they they met us in the flesh, so to speak, in their home turf,
yeah,
and or at their home turf. And I think that's why there's that stickiness between the band and those memories. It kind of, for me, it reminds me of hockey and my dad taking me to games when I was a little kid. And I can still remember those games because I was there and I can remember this and I can remember that. And then with music, if I think about my own memories when I was in the audience and I was trying to learn how to play drums and going to see bands to try to understand, how bands work and so on. And they're magic movies. So I get why Triumph fans have these memories that just stick and stick and go on for decades. So this would be a really great way, I think, to, kind of honor their memories and bring them back uh, into those times uh, during an hour and a half in a theater or in an arena, wherever we end up doing it, and hopefully make a lot of people happy. My goal is that people leave the venue and they're just very, very, very happy and inspired by some of the lyrics that maybe resonate the most.
yeah. Well, I think you're going to accomplish that. I mean, like I said before, Triumph has never failed. So, I mean, as far as a diehard fan, that goes back to 1978 when I saw you guys in Buffalo at Kleinhans Music Hall when I was 12. I mean, I remember, I can tell you like what the weather was like that day. I can tell you the smells of going into the arena. But like if you ask me what I ate for lunch yesterday, I'm not really too sure. I think it was probably like yogurt or something, but I'm just saying that it's that those memories, like you said, do last forever and ever, and it's like deep in my heart.
Yeah, it is funny, and it's the way those things stick, whether it's music or sports. But I guess it shows you that it's the things that really mean something to you that actually really stick. I remember the very very first time I ever saw a set of drums with a drummer. And it was just at a beach pavilion. And my buddy Brad and I snuck in. I think we were 11 years old or something. We weren't even old enough to be there probably, but we got in and I got to see these red sparkle drums. I went, oh my God, what's that? That looks like fun. That's what hooks you. You never forget that.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, I can't wait to see this. Hopefully, you're not going to forget Buffalo, New York when you roll this out. I know you're
There's not
not.
a chance in 10 million that we would not play Buffalo. I got very
Great.
fond memories about Buffalo, and there's many, many cities in America. I mean, we were, as far as a Canadian band, we were the most hard-headed, determined people to come to the United States. Um, the way, Mike and Rick and I, when we, sort of came through the ranks in the Greater Toronto region here, whether we were rehearsing in the bowling alley in Mississauga where we started, or playing elsewhere nearby, it was always got to make it the States. You got to make it the States. You got to make it the States. That was the mantra of young musicians at that time, and I think it's because so many of them just couldn't get across the border. They get into America. The American fans are like, I don't know, I don't. You don't turn. You don't do. You're not doing anything for me. And then boop back to Canada. So we got a bit of a boost, or I think a bit of inspiration from Rush because they were just a little bit before us, and they seemed to be able to glide over the border, and American fans liked them, and it was a big just a big coincidence, I guess, that we were a power trio as well, and that we were from the same neck of the woods. But I always thought that Rush kicked the door open in America, and you can see what's happened since then. I mean, there's been so many bands that have not been able to really gain an audience in America. And then there are those that have gained huge audiences in America. But it was very, very seemingly impossible, I guess, is what I would say when we started. It seemed like scaling Mount Everest or something. So I loved when we got in America, we just loved playing all over the place and meeting the people. And I've told Canadians for years, I said, when they say, well, the United States this or the United States that, I said, well, which United States? Because there's 50 states and they're all like countries. They're
Yeah.
all individual. They all have their own uh, characteristics. And, the best way to understand America is to go through all 50 states and meet all those people and, experience, the differences and the things that bring them together. And, I always felt when we were, bringing music to cities, we were bringing something that brings people together. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this mixed reality tour again, is have people brought together through music and, be lifted up spiritually a little bit. Not to get too heavy on you here, but
Right.
you know what I mean? Have a very good time. Let's put it that way, and feel better when you leave than when you walk in. Something like that.
Well, Gil, I want to thank you for your time, and this was a very interesting interview, and I'm super excited. I mean, every time I talk to you, I get really excited afterwards. I can't wait to, see the new projects come along. And even though the original band hasn't been together, I mean, other than the couple times you guys got together and played, but you haven't toured really since 1988 together. I mean, I give you a lot of credit for keeping the band going with these projects that you're putting out. And it's like, I feel like Triumph is, it's still around. I mean, you guys are still doing stuff and putting out great packages and documentaries and now this tribute record. I mean, thanks for keeping it going.
Yeah, thanks for noticing and supporting. I think what's happened is, maybe there was a period where Mike and Rick and I, you kind of take the whole thing for granted a little bit, and kind of like what we do with family members, right? You take your wife for granted or something, and then you feel bad about it after the fact. Maybe we went through a bit of a period like that. I don't know. I think that now we've all reflected on, you think of the unbelievable communications, like letters that we've received and sort of testimonials that we've received. And when we did the documentary and they had what they called the super fan fantasy, and the film company handpicked 150 people uh, and brought them into that event. And it was like there wasn't a dry eye in the house. It was just I don't know, you had to be there, you had to experience it. And as a musician, you grow up as a kid and you're playing and you're just trying to play at the church dance or something like that and not get fired. That's your goal, you know. To experience that at some stage in your life makes you have kind of respect for the band yourself. Uh, well, I guess if everyone feels this way, or these people feel this way, I mean, we should be respectful of that. And hopefully that's what this show does, it is true to what Triumph was. It's obviously got new guys that can handle the physical aspects of touring and can still hit the notes singing and all that stuff. And hopefully it's great for Triumph fans, and great for the old band, the new band, or the combined band, whatever you want to call it. And hopefully it's a good landing.
Yeah. All right. It sounds good. Well, thank you again, Gil, and we'll catch you on the roads, hopefully.
Sounds great, Thomas. I look forward to the next time we speak, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right. You enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.